Good morning and welcome back to the Engerati studio here at European Utility Week. I'm Claire Falkvane, the editor of Metering International. And with me this morning I have Francisco Romero, who is the Business Director for Energy from Schneider. Francisco, thanks so much for joining me this morning.
Thanks to you for inviting me.
I wanted to know if you could share with me some of your ideas. You're responsible for quite a diverse and wide global market. And
Right.
could you possibly share with me some of the changes that are happening within the utility business at the moment? I think let's start with Europe, and then we can move on from there. I'm curious to know how you're seeing the changes and how the developments are happening.
Yes, of course. There is very important changes that the utilities are living nowadays. I would say worldwide. There are differences in Latin America and Europe, in Asia and the States that we can take later if you want. But I would say that the main challenge is one of those is regarding the regulation pressures, that there are a lot. Also, there is a need to remove the bulk generation and to store the more renewables as possible in order to have a greener planet, and this is the reality worldwide with different speeds depending of the countries, depending of the economics, but it's a reality. Also, there is a problem about the cybersecurity, and also it's another big problem to manage this huge amount of data that we can have the utilities to manage when we're talking about smart, the famous word, smart everything, smart metering, smart grid, smart generation. At the end, it's a matter to take a lot of information for the sensors, smart sensors in the field, and some systems to use properly by the right person. Then at the end, it's a huge amount of data that you need to locate in a certain database, very well constructed, and this management of the huge volume is another of the changes. Then the integration of the renewables is another important thing, another important challenge that all utilities has in their table, and they need to manage. And these changes, changing business are different depending of the countries and depending on the continents. I would say like the smart metering, for instance, is one important issue. We are in Europe. We are better in compared with other countries that are other continents that we are starting right now, like for instance Latin America, where Brazil is the leader. And there are any other, but Brazil, I would say, is the one that is taking care about the smart metering deployment. In the States, also we can compare with our more or less, and also it's something very new for the Asia, and there is practically anything as regards Africa, with the exception of South Africa, that they are doing something.
Yeah, I know that from an African perspective, the use of smart meters is fairly limited to probably commercial and industrial customers.
Right.
There is some movement within the South African market to introduce smart meters for customers that use over 1,000 kilowatt hours a month, but it's still a fairly small portion of the overall metering business. You mentioned that Latin America is, particularly Brazil, is making some great strides in terms of the digitization of its energy sector.
Right.
I know that in Brazil, just outside Rio, they have a town called Buzios, where they are running quite a big integrated sort of smart grid across the entire town. In terms of other developments that are happening from a Brazilian perspective or a Latin American perspective for smart grids and for smart metering, what are the particular highlights that are going on at the moment?
Yes, talking about Buzios, I know the details about that. Buzios, there is a part of the song where a utility company is managing the distribution of the customer. I know that what we did was we can call an R&D project in order to demonstrate that the smart metering and the technology as it is can be very well integrated as regards the smart grids, the smart meters, electric vehicles, and so forth. But talking in Brazil in general, there is a trend, I would say that, in order to lead the smart grid initiatives in the whole America. Brazil is the half, Latin America, of everything. Regarding space, in inhabitants, PID, and these kind of things. Then they are very, very active for the smart grids. I would say that particularly for the smart metering. there is a Brazilian law that, if I remember correctly, they oblige to the utilities to have a smart meter in place, independent of the size of the company. Before, I don't remember, maybe it can be 2020, in 10 years or 7 years from now. Most of the utilities are starting pilots for the smart metering, where it is not easy, at least the integration with the meters. We are there, try to work in Brazil, and a very important country and place where we feel very comfortable working there.
I know that they've had really big success in terms of managing revenue, particularly with a lot of the metering interventions that they've undertaken in Brazil, particularly in some of the less formal settlements, if I can put it that way. You also have experience working in parts of Asia, particularly China and India. What is the landscape look like there from a smart grid and a smart metering perspective?
In India, it's an amazing, I would say amazing, because there are plenty of money that come from different funds, World Bank and others, in order to reconstruct India for the point of view of the electric business. Then they know, and we know, that they are very bad in compared with others, but they have a very clear strategy to be, if not at the top level, at least to the average. Then we are doing plenty of investment in everything. Everything means in the field, in order to have better sensors with more smart sensors for the feeder automation and the substation automation. Also, we are doing plenty of investment regarding the smart operation that we call. That means the SCADA, DMS, these kind of things to operate in a more efficient way, to have more reliability of the network, but also in the smart metering. Then what they are doing are no pilots, are real offers that someone is winning or lost to do this kind of thing. Sometimes they're asking for everything, understanding for everything, the smart metering, feeder automation, substation automation, smart operation, and even the CIS and building system to compare, or sometimes the split, the RFP for going to the smart metering salon or any other. But it doesn't matter the way where they prepare the RFP. The thing is that in the whole India, they started actually, remember, maybe 4 years ago, and they are doing plenty of investment and plenty of RFPs. That it means that if the projects are successful, and it could be successful, independently of who is the system integrator who is done, in general, I would say that in 4 or 5 years, because these kind of projects, they take no less than 2 or 3 years minimum, it can be 5 or maximum, they can have a better level that they have today. I don't know what is the level they can achieve, but obviously there won't be comparison at all with the current situation, and this is my guess.
I was lucky enough to speak to Sam Petroda, who is the chairman of their Smart Grid initiative, a couple of weeks ago. India launched their Smart Grid roadmap, I think it was in August. And some of the deadlines that they've put towards the system are very, very ambitious. I think they're wanting some of the first pilots or projects to have been rolled out or to be in a very advanced stage by 2016, 2017. And when I asked him why, did he think that these deadlines were a little bit ambitious, his answer was, of course they are. But if they're not, what's the point of having them? So, I think in terms of the digitization of the energy sector generally, for Europe and America has probably been an evolution. But I think in India, it's probably better to call it a revolution, because it's certainly it's digitization on steroids.
Yeah, I agree, totally agree. This is more than a revolution. In India, it's unbelievable. The situation is bad in comparison, as I said at the very beginning. Then the possibilities to improve are amazing, are a lot. Then, and this is what you do. That's a clear strategy to do that, and they are doing. They are not thinking, they are not postponed to the coming future. They're doing right now.
I guess that's also where it's really important to have a lot of political backing and a very strong political stance on the need to do this, because you need to have that backing in order to fast track some of these processes. In terms of China, is there anything particularly exciting going on there from a smart metering perspective or a smart grid perspective?
China is behind others. China is doing, again, as others, some smart metering deployment. but it's a market different than India and others. I would say that in terms of where they are starting, they are doing pilots. Everybody is doing, and everyone is doing pilots. At least pilots to test the meters, can be Chinese meter or outside meters, the integration, all the system that you need to have in place, to ensure that they're working properly, the communication, the reliability, the performance. Performance is key at the end. If you remember, I mentioned to you at the beginning of the conversation, one of the challenges is the huge amount of data.
Yes.
And this is what we're talking about when we talk about meters itself. If you read the meters any single quarter of an hour and you have millions of meters, you need to manage in this way. Then, based on that, they are pilots in China or any other. But I would say that they are a little bit behind others, but the power of China is amazing. They are increasing a lot. In the last year, more than 7-8%, and they are keep that rate. Then I guess that if they follow in the speed and the growth that they are doing in the last year, maybe we are going to achieve others, and maybe we are going to start with more money, with more initiative to leverage what we started maybe 2 years ago. Then I guess that China will be like India is doing right now. Obviously, it's very big, have a lot of power, and there are a lot of needs to improve their smart grids.
Yeah. I guess one of the things, though, where China is particularly strong is their recognition of the need for security.
Yeah.
I believe that China is one of the countries that
Right.
has probably got the best cybersecurity
Yeah.
rules and regulations in place.
Yeah.
And perhaps there's some lessons that we could take from the
Right.
immense importance that they give to that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're going to be running out of time fairly soon, but I wanted to just give you an opportunity to give an idea of some of the markets that Schneider operates in globally, I guess from a sectoral perspective more than a regional perspective.
Yes, within Schneider we have first of all, we are people with technical knowledge on the electric sector and others, but electric is our main competencies that we have. For hardware and software, what we have is a very rich portfolio of products and services and solutions that we offer to our customers. And we have a lot of things from generation to transmission, distribution, and the consumer. Then we have best of class hardware and software. I can mention what we have for the smart metering. This is software that we have in order to enable the integration with different meters, independent of the protocols, also for feeder and substation automation, and also for the smart operation, the SCADA, the advanced DMS, the weather forecast, the outage management. This is totally key, need and mandatory for the utilities to have something smarter and to try to achieve a better, to increase the efficiency of the network, the reliability of the network. And also, it's important to take care about the cybersecurity. That in certain countries also is important. And we try to have to think in 3 different sectors. One of those is the generation part, to be more efficient the generation, to be short. For the distribution, we want to help to the utilities to have smart grids, understanding that the feeder, the smart metering, and the smart operation that I commented before, but also for the prosumer. For the prosumer, the producer and consumer at the same time. For those, we have also software and abilities that we're trying to enable to the utilities to do, I would say, a smarter demand-side management, a load shedding, in order to compare that there is a load now and on the forecast of the potential problem in the coming future, how we can do in order to optimize that, but even taking care or taking into account, the consumer. The more important are the industrials and the commercial by the relative weight, but also even for the residential, even doing something that we call in these terms, the virtual power plants, in order to allocate certain energy that you don't have in a part, to move this capacity from one part to the other. And we are doing, for instance, these kind of things in France, for instance, in Schneider in part to do that.
Okay. Francisco, unfortunately, time has not been on our side this morning, and we are going to need to wrap up. I wanted to thank you very much for being with us this morning. From European Utility Week, I'm Kay Falkvan. Thanks for watching.